So this video started off as me wanting to talk about Dustin Poirier after he appeared on the Diary of a CEO podcast after the infamous "It's gonna be bad, my dude" incident at the airport. And I really just wanted to talk about MMA fighters and the brutal reality of retirement. But to be honest with you, I was recording the video and I was reacting to certain moments, and I really just thought to myself, what the fuck am I doing? What am I yapping about? I'm just restating old crap that I've said before. MMA fighters are underpaid. They do not get their values worth out of the UFC. Dana does not give them enough money. And quite frankly, it's a travesty that they leave the sport with brain damage and behavioral issues. In the video, he talked about how he's had scans and how the septum in his brain is damaged. It's splitting, and this is causing a myriad of issues for him. And yeah, he basically said he's got brain damage. They can't really confirm it, but all the signs are pointing to that. And he's just one of many. He is just one of many UFC fighters that leave the game, and he's one of the lucky few that's actually been able to get out of the game with a decent amount of money and has been able to retire comfortably, at least on the financial side of things. But there was a lot more to this interview than just the financial aspect of MMA and the lack of value the UFC seems to bestow upon their fighters. You know, I've done videos, I've made videos talking about this in the past. It's been beaten to death. It's a concept that is not foreign to many people. But I really just wanted to talk more about MMA fighters and the reality of retirement and the mental aspect of it and why they seem to struggle so much. I've had a bit of a hypothesis for a long time that MMA attracts social rejects. MMA as a sport attracts social rejects and losers. And even as a hobby, even if you don't pursue it professionally, those that get enthralled with MMA, those that watch MMA, those that train MMA at an amateur level, there is a level of loserdom. There's something about the sport of MMA that seems to attract these types of individuals. MMA is like this alt-right pipeline. And that if you go into MMA or you watch MMA or you consume MMA content on Twitter, these MMA Twitter guys yapping on Twitter, race baiting, rage baiting. On Twitter, there's guys on YouTube that do it. Obviously, the biggest of them all, MMA Guru. Now, this is not a political video. I'm not going to get political with it, but it's just something I've noticed in this sport, and it makes me question why MMA seems to attract this archetype of person. You can see it even in the Dustin Poirier video. Every interview he's in, he's got a reserved personality. He almost stutters when he talks. He's not the most confident guy, it seems. There's something about him that is kind of endearing because he's kind of socially anxious. He's kind of quiet, humble. There's like a reserved side to his personality, and it's not boisterous or flamboyant. And MMA, intrinsically, if you boil down the concept of the sport, it's a sport as old as time. For as long as humans have been around, humans have been fighting other humans. It's something that is like pseudo-embedded into humanity, violence, to fight another man. But the reality of that is the type of person it takes to rise to the top, of a sport like that is not a functional human being. It's not a normal person. There's something a little bit ticked to the side there. And that's why MMA seems to attract these asocial, atypical weirdos. This loner archetype that seems to follow the MMA space. This video is not going to get a lot of views, right? I'm not chasing views with this one. I just wanted to voice my opinion about it. And there's a lot of things I want to talk about in this video. Like I said, it started off as me talking about Dustin Poirier. Dustin Poirier, a reserved guy, a quiet guy, but clearly facing a lot of demons. And I think the Dustin Poirier video that I just watched, the Diary of a CEO interview, it's very telling, right? He's come out and he's essentially stated he's battling depression every single day. He's battling substance abuse issues. He's battling childhood trauma. And he used MMA, the sport, as a way of escaping this. We see this all the time. Guys like Sean Strickland, even guys like Sean O'Malley with the dyed hair and the face tats, and he's streaming with Aiden Ross. You hear him talk about his childhood. You hear him talk about his high school years. He says he got into the sport because he was an asocial loser who couldn't get girls in high school. He wanted to get girls. He wanted girls to be impressed by him. He wanted female validation. He wanted all of these things. Even Conor McGregor, the most charismatic, the most well-known, the most well-spoken UFC fighter of all time, the greatest promoter in UFC history, there will never be another Conor McGregor. Even him, you can see in early videos where he shows his true personality, where he's not trying to come across as this flamboyant, crazy, charismatic individual. In those early videos, those early interviews, before he became the character of Conor McGregor with the tattoos and the watches and the cars and everything that came with that, you can tell that there's this loner energy to him. And this is the type of character, these are the characteristics that attracts individuals to MMA, because they're not guys that can compete in team sports. They're not guys that can be team players. They have to be number one. They have to be isolated, and they need to be working towards an impossible goal in order to feel satisfied in life. And that's why we see guys like Dustin Poirier struggling with retirement and struggling with alcoholism and substance abuse, because that's the only thing that can really fill this void inside of them that fighting temporarily covered and that fighting solved for a brief period of time. I guess what I'm trying to say here, maybe not very eloquently or articulately, is that MMA attracts a very certain, a very special type of person. And I'm just going to come out and say it, quite frankly, these guys are losers. These guys are losers. They don't have social connections. They don't have a life outside of the sport. The MMA fighters that we all love are guys that have been through extreme levels of trauma and are extremely fucked up in the head. And as soon as they leave the sport, as soon as they leave the spotlight, they struggle. They struggle with the issues that they've been carrying and that they've been plastering over by competing in MMA. Look, the memes are funny. I've spent hours laughing at the Conor McGregor memes when he's fucking high out of his mind. I've spent hours laughing at the Dustin Poirier memes where he's trying to fight the guy, pound it, my dude, pound it, bro. Yeah, you did what you could. Like, it's funny. There's moments of it that are funny, but there is a deep level of sadness behind that. There's a level of sadness when you see Conor McGregor sniffing his fucking life away. And there's a level of sadness when you see Dustin Poirier drinking his demons away, because it's symptoms of a bigger issue. And there's not a lot of guys in the MMA media space that are covering this, that are talking about this. We all love to talk about the fights. We love to talk about what's next. And we're moving at a million miles an hour. Next week, when Conor McGregor beats Max Holloway, or when Max Holloway beats Conor McGregor, we're on to the next. Kamaru Usman versus Dricus du Plessis. New videos will come out. New tier lists will come out. Things move on. And these fighters get forgotten about. And their brains remain damaged. Their pockets often do not remain full with money. And it's a bit of a psyop to just say, get over it, bro. Like, I see Sean Strickland is claiming that Dustin Poirier can't be depressed because he's got heaps of money. Sean Strickland doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. And he will struggle with retirement when he eventually cannot compete in the sport anymore. He's a guy that needs to be training. He's a guy that's come out and said he needs to be training. Otherwise, he doesn't know what to do with himself. I'm surprised a man like that can't give Dustin Poirier a bit of empathy, and it's like, it's too difficult for them to talk about their issues. It's too much of a challenge for them to talk about their problems, because that's not the man way to do it. And this video will get probably a lot of hate and not a lot of views, because it's not a fun subject to talk about. It's better to talk about Conor McGregor and his titanium shin bone and how he's going to knock out Max Holloway in 2 rounds than it is to talk about the sad reality of becoming a UFC fighter and being a UFC fighter. And it takes me to the MMA media landscape that we see. We see guys like MMA Guru out here rage baiting, race baiting. The bro dropped a fucking race tier list out here. It's like all these guys in this space are so two-dimensional, and they don't understand MMA and combat sports in general attracts a certain archetype of individual. Like I said, it's an asocial, atypical human that gets into this sport and that attempts to beat the crap out of another person for a living. And I think this archetype, I think these characteristics that are possessed by the fighters are reflected on the fans. I was looking at a comment section, right, on the MMA Guru, and there's, as much as I have issues with him as a content creator, I do enjoy watching some of his content. His fight breakdowns are pretty funny sometimes. He's all right. But I was looking at the comments, right? And the comments are like, obviously in part taking the piss. It's a joke to an extent. But the comments are rinsing him for taking a break from content creation. And it's the same thing with like Dustin Poirier. It's the same thing with John Jones and these guys getting absolutely destroyed when they go on their escapades. It's like mental health is not understood and mental health is not cared about by MMA fighters and MMA fans as a whole. This guy the MMA guru has openly spoken about how he's a loser. He's openly spoken about how the first time he went outside in 2 years was to fucking meet Dricus du Plessis. The first time this guy went outside in 2 years was to meet Dricus du Plessis. He doesn't go outside. He doesn't have friends. And his fans always defend him whenever he's getting rinsed on comment sections for the race baiting he does and for the racism that he basically displays, right? Against Dagestani guys, against black fighters. I mean, he's pretty open about it. When he's getting rinsed on these comment sections for the things he says and the things he does, his fans always come and defend him by saying, "Oh, well, he makes more money than you. He makes more money than you, bro. He's more successful than you." Yeah, but he doesn't go outside. He doesn't have a life. He doesn't have friends. He doesn't speak to people. It's like money, when you have it, is meaningless. Money, when you don't have it, you place it on this pedestal, and people use the thing that they are most insecure about to insult other people on. So if someone calls you ugly, you know they're insecure about their looks. If someone calls you broke, you know they're insecure about the amount of money they have in their bank account, right? People are simple. The vestige of humanity that we all possess is really displayed in our most simple baseline actions. And when you see these losers commenting on social media, these MMA guru fans, these MMA guru stans, this is just one example, by the way, you can see the sadness behind it. I think the reason why Guru popped off and the reason why he's so fucking famous and people love him or seem to love him is because he's a fucking loser. The guy has no friends. The guy has no life. There's no human connection in this bloke's existence. All he does is sit at his computer and talk to a chat, right? Talk to chat, do an impression of Conor getting his gooch licked by Valentina Shevchenko. His life is sad and his fans resonate with this, and his fans, which is a large proportion of the MMA fan base, resonate with being an asocial loser. So I think I'm not wrong in saying there's a connection between the fact that you have MMA fighters, even the best like Dustin Poirier, talking about anxiety, talking about how they've never felt like they're fit in, talking about how they're like social rejects and how the MMA space and fighting in the UFC fixed this for them for a period of time. There's a correlation between the fact that you have MMA fighters that think like this and that are wired like this. There's a correlation between this and the fact that the fans are like that. There's a link. MMA fans and MMA fighters in general are asocial losers. It's a sport that attracts social rejects, and it's a sport that attracts weirdos. That's my thoughts. And I'm not talking about myself. I'm completely different. I'm immune from this, by the way. So, yeah, much love.